You recognise where we are? Yep, we've been here before. In 1461, 6 years after two armies met here for the very first time, they were back. Last time, it was a thuggery contest, but this time, it's gonna be bigger and it's gonna be better. Welcome back to St Albans. Although without an ice cream truck, it's just like any park with a cathedral plonked in the middle of it. Man, gutted.
I don't know about you, but reaching 10,000 steps always sounds easier than it really is. I often wonder, why 10,000? What is it about that number? Are there actually specific health benefits to it, or has someone simply pulled it out of, well, you know where? But none of that really matters. While on your 10,000 step crusade, have you ever really wondered where those steps are taking you? If isolation has taught us anything, it is the value of walking and running. I mean, everyone is out doing it. But while out on your expeditions, do you ever think about the people whose footsteps you may be tracing?
At the time of the Wars of the Roses, St Albans was the gateway to London. It connected London to the north, which is why it was often at the heart of the action. Now the nobles, they were fighting for a cause that the people of St Albans probably weren't really concerned with. All they would have been thinking about was their survival. Quite frankly, it's lucky the nobles didn't need votes to hold on to their seats, because I reckon the people of St Albans would have been, well, quite frankly, fed up with their antics. Now, I could put this on, but I won't. I'm sticking with the people. What is really captivating about the Wars of the Roses is all the drama. It really is the medieval equivalent of a soap opera. You know, if you believe the soaps to be accurate depictions of everyday life in places up and down this country, well, you'd probably run a mile, because they're clearly not very safe places to live. It is important to see this period as a soap opera because, for example, the likes of the Second Battle of St Albans is all about characters. Imagine the lead up to the television awards where all the characters in the soaps are battling it out for a shot at the Actor of the Year award. That's pretty much what's happening here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here this evening. It is my pleasure to announce the nominations for the British Soap Award for Best Actor in the year 1461. But before I begin, I must say this year has been very competitive indeed, with all our nominations sacrificing many in order to achieve their ambitions and be here with us this evening. And without further ado, and in no particular order, the nominations are as follows. Queen Margaret of Anjou, Richard Neville, the Earl of Warwick, His Royal Highness the King himself, King Henry VI of England, and our final nominee of the evening. This is a man like you and me. This is a man at the bottom of the heap. This is a man with no title or keep. This is a man who is the underdog and is most certainly not sitting on a cushion. One Andrew Trollope. Queen Margaret's year started off with a bang. Having defeated York at the Battle of Wakefield in December 1460, she had annihilated the Yorkist army, executed York, his son Edmund, and Salisbury. Now she was marching south with an army made up of French, Scottish, and Lancastrians. She was allowing her men to ransack and pillage towns en route. Why? Well, this is because she couldn't actually afford to pay the contingents of French and Scottish in her army, so she was allowing them to take what was owed for themselves. She was a mother out for blood. Her son had been disinherited from the throne through the Act of Accord, and she would do anything to take back control. She was on the warpath. A worthy adversary. As you can probably imagine, the Yorkist propaganda regime had a field day with Margaret's antics. Warwick, having won Northampton and now with Edward the Earl of March in the Welsh Marches dealing with Jasper Tudor, was forced to march north from London to St Albans to stop her. Warwick's start to 1461 had not been quite so notable as some of his competitors, but now was his chance to make his claim to what was rightfully his. The award, of course. Now, keeping his friends close, but his enemies closer, he decided to take King Henry VI with him. Once again, as with 6 years before, Henry would find himself placed at the heart of the action. But why did Warwick take Henry with him? Warwick the Kingmaker? Some people suggest that Warwick wanted his army to be seen as the King's army, but others say it would have just been safer to leave Henry at home, in London. Either way, this was the first controversial standpoint to surround Warwick on this fateful day. Now, when thinking about Warwick at this particular battle, he is arrogant and self-important. As with military tradition, he splits his men into 3 battles, or sections. Yes, so far so good, but now, for a reason we can only really speculate about, he places his men at 3 different intervals along the road leading into St Albans, which covered some 4.7 miles. Norfolk is given the command of the vanguard and is positioned at the head of the army at Normanland Common. Warwick commands the centre and digs himself in at Sandridge. And Montague, Warwick's brother, commands the rear guard at Bernard's Heath. But most importantly, has in his protection one very gentle King Henry VI, who is now known to have been suffering with his mental health.
Lastly, he left a small contingent of archers in the centre of St Albans to protect the town. Don't tell these guys I can't make 4.7 miles, because I won't make the team. The point is, moving men backwards and forwards in medieval warfare was not quick, and it was certainly not effective. So, by extending his line over 4.7 miles, Warwick was effectively isolating each battle. This would end up biting him on the backside.
We can only speculate as to what was going through Warwick's mind when deploying his troops. There is most certainly an air of mystery that surrounds Warwick and his actions at the Second Battle of St Albans. Long live the King! The King, who has been suffering with his mental health since his first visit to St Albans, has been dragged back to the scene of his first defeat. He is plonked under a tree to await the results of the day, left there quite content, just like the village idiot. Yet the power of his presence is felt across the battlefield. One thing that is pivotal in understanding Warwick's decisions before the battle is his use of Burgundian handgunners. Now, he marched his army out of London, which means it was likely he would have had artillery with him. And so he does what many have done before him and build another encampment. So this means that so far we've had a form of encampment at the First Battle of St Albans, at the non-Battle of Ludford Bridge, at the Battle of Northampton, at the Battle of Wakefield, and now another one at the Second Battle of St Albans. And the funny thing is that on every one of those occasions, without exception, the side with the encampment is the side that loses. Well, after this, I think they finally get the message because they shelve the idea and they don't bring it out again.
Now, the people of St Albans
may have initially been relieved when Warwick appeared and set up shop outside of the town. They would have heard of Margaret's march south and the devastation she was leaving in her wake, so maybe Warwick was here to protect the people this time. However, the problem you have with cannons and encampments is that once you've dug them in facing one way, it's very tricky to turn them round if you need to. Andrew Trollope, a military man, has managed somehow to climb the greasy pole and is now competing on the world stage. In his bid for Actor of the Year, he not only betrayed Warwick in 1459 at Ludford Bridge and switched sides, but now he was back to give his old boss a damn good thrashing. He earned his nomination. He was promoted to commander of Margaret's army, and on hearing news of Warwick's encampment, he decides to take the Lancastrian force on a little diversion. Taking them off the main road, he heads west towards Dunstable. When he gets to Dunstable, they clear out a small Yorkist contingent, and then he frog marches his army through the night along Watling Street so that on the morning of the 17th of February 1461, the people of St Albans are awoken by the sound of charging Lancastrians. The Yorkist archers left to defend the town did a sterling job in fending off the Lancastrians, causing heavy casualties. Now, as you can imagine, in street-to-street fighting, archers could have a devastating effect, but eventually they were beaten back. The Lancastrians are now on the move, and they must have been moving quickly because before long they were crashing into the back of Montague's battle line. It is reported that here at Bernard's Heath he fought valiantly, and his men, they put up some really fierce resistance. Now, to give the battlefield context, it is very unusual for a medieval pitched battle to take place across such a distance. Now, I am here at the Clarence Park Football Stadium, which is the home to St Albans City FC. Now, they can fit within this stadium 4,300 fans. Now, if they can fit in 4,300 fans, imagine how many soldiers they could fit within this ground with the pitch included. 4,300 and the rest. Now imagine that many men, but spread across a 4.7 mile distance. And without any forms of communication or a bird's eye perspective, the scene on that day must have been absolute chaos. Now Montague sends word to Warwick calling for assistance. Warwick, who is 1.7 miles away, well, his bad position is about to cost him dearly. We don't know what the message said, but Warwick delays. He doesn't send reinforcements. Mike Ingram believes that it is likely the Lancastrians swarmed Montague's rearguard, making short work of them and capturing him in the process. By the time Warwick received his message and could react, it was probably too late. Instead, Warwick orders an organised retreat of his 4,000 men west to rendezvous with Edward, who is marching to meet him. But what about Norfolk, do you ask? Well, he just disappears from all the records in the aftermath of the battle. Somewhat of a hole in the plot, don't you think? Him and his few thousand men, they just disappear into a puff of smoke? A little bit like the rest of my beer. Horsey, horsey, don't you stop. Just let your feet go clippity-clop. The king, meanwhile, is still sat in his tree. Apparently, he spent the whole battle singing and laughing at the chaos around him. I mean, maybe he was the sanest man on the battlefield that day and just found the drama absolutely hilarious. I'm sure we can all agree, even the soaps sometimes can transcend the realm of the ridiculous. But during the battle, he had two Yorkist nobles looking out for him, one Lord Bonville and a Sir Thomas Kyrrell. Now, after the battle, they handed him over safely to Queen Margaret, and he assured them that no harm would come to them. But at this point, Queen Margaret's performance just reached a whole other level because she turned round to her 7-year-old son, Edward, the Prince of Wales, and asked him how he wanted her to punish them. Now, having been brought up and drip-fed a hatred for the Yorkist cause and all of his enemies, he tells his mum to have them executed. I mean, when we say Game of Thrones is based on the Wars of the Roses, you know, we weren't kidding. Like, this guy is 7 years old and he already has blood on his hands. He was the real Joffrey Baratheon. Margaret's reputation caught up with her. As she approached London to take back what was rightfully hers, the Londoners shut the gates. The Lancastrians had burnt too many bridges with the south. By ransacking her own country, Margaret was left without a capital city. Queen Margaret was forced to retreat back up north when Edward appeared on the horizon with Warwick in tow. 1461 was just beginning.
And the results are finally in. The winner of the British Soap Award for the Best Actor in the year 1461 goes to... Find out after the break. We come to St Albans, we see the cathedral, we see the Roman ruins, and we think that's it. But there is more, there is so much more. This place is steeped in history, and the people who live here, well, they are made of some sturdy stuff because they didn't survive one battle, they survived two. Now luckily today, we do our talking on the pitch. This is the hallowed ground. And I would say keep an eye out for St Albans City Football Club, because if their history has taught us anything, it is that they ain't scared of nothing.